Alright, so we're returning after the holidays to continue with Tehilim, Psalms. We're holding chapter 75, Ayin Hey. Sometimes we will be doing 2 chapters, perhaps even more, depending on how big the chapter is. So today I think we can do Ayin Hey and Ayin Vav, 75 and 76. As you go through Tehilim, especially if you learn it, you will notice that this is not just a book about psalms, praises, even though that's what it is called. It is also very much prophetic. There's a lot of prophecy here, as we will see today, about the future. These are also words of encouragement. After all, as we go through life, many of us are puzzled by many things that we don't understand. The human mind is very limited. We don't live so long as to be able to figure out everything there is. And even if man were to live for 1,000 years, he would still not understand everything there is. After all, there is a spiritual dimension that we don't readily observe, but we know it exists. So here, the words in Tehilim are also meant to instill in us certain ideas, to appreciate what is going on in this world, that there is a creator who manages his creation. He did not only create and leave the scene. He's still around. He observes. He documents everything, he remembers everything, even though man forgets, he does not forget. So there's a lot of valuable lessons, really a lot of valuable lessons, and that is why I think it's a good idea. I encourage people to not just read it, which is powerful, but also to learn it, to have a better understanding of the words. So that's what we're trying to do, is to go a little bit deeper into the text, not just to translate it literally, but to explain what is behind the message. After all, this is a message for future generations. Situations that we will go through, that we will experience, sometimes exactly the same that David HaMelech experienced, and sometimes similar situation, whether it is a personal enemy or it is an enemy of the Jewish people. So this is being communicated on the individual level to everyone, what he may be going through in life, as well as to the Jewish people, as we will see. And much of what is being said, especially in these chapters, relates to the end of days, right before Mashiach comes. So it is encouraging to hear words from the prophets, whether it is in Tehilim or in Zechariah or in Yechezkel, telling us about what will happen in the future. The difficult times that we will encounter, but as well as the final redemption that we're all looking forward to. Every perek has a segula, a special power, a metaphysical power, that if one has a certain need, whether it is health, whether it is a lawsuit, or all sorts of troubles with one's enemy, every chapter relates to something and has a special power and is propitious for that particular problem. So Ayin Hey, for example, 75 is if one unfortunately committed some terrible mistake and sinned. This is in a sense a request for forgiveness, even though there are other prayers. Ayin Hey, chapter 75, is especially powerful to attain forgiveness, as long as, of course, one is sincere. And 76, Ayin Vav, is if someone is suffering as a result of fire or water, tsunami, floods, all kinds of troubles of that nature. 76 is, in some ways, a protection for that, to be said at the time that it is happening. Alright, so we're going to begin. Namnatzech al tashchet mizmor le'asaf shir. So this is also being said by Asaf, who is a prophet. For the conductor, he's asking al tashchet, don't destroy. Asking not to be destroyed. Why would he think about destruction all of a sudden? Because he's thinking about the future. He sees many wars, whether it is World War I, World War II, many wars. And we're not even aware of the many big wars before our time. It's in the history. Take, for example, the Crusades. Major war, in a sense, battles, not just in Israel, but along the way. Many people lost their lives. All kinds of battles to come that people, unfortunately, may get hurt. So he's making a special request, a special prayer that relates to those times, to those wars that are close to the time of the Geulah, the redemption, that Hashem, please spare our people. Even though people will die, people will get hurt, let it not be so many. As you know, during the Holocaust, 6 million Jews approximately were killed. So that is a lot. And there have been communities which were completely wiped out. Just Poland alone had over 3 million Jews before World War II. I mean, there were survivors, but when you think back of what it was and what it is today, I mean, there's nothing there left, at least not in comparison to what it was. And unfortunately, many communities suffered that kind of a fate, where they were either killed or exiled, uprooted. And he's making a special plea for the end of days, because that is when it's going to be the most painful. And he says as follows. Now he's saying this as a song meaning that in the end we will realize that all that had happened to us, even the most painful events, were for the good. So there's obviously reason to sing and to praise that things are not just happening by chance or by coincidence. It is all from above. And we may perceive it as something painful, but in the end we will realize that it's actually good for us. That may be hard to say to a Holocaust survivor, but that is the fact, that is the reality, and that is why these words have been said. So that even in the most troublesome time, the most painful experience, there is some, I think they call it, right, a silver lining behind it. There's some good behind it that we may not be aware at the time that it is happening. But when we read through Tehilim, we will see in the end what all this means. So this is composed, some of the psalms are composed with a song, some with musical instruments. And this is a special request that he's making for the end of days, that we should be able to contend with it properly when we see it, if we are the generation, which I believe we are, that is going to see it. Hodinu lecha Elohim, hodinu. So we give thanks. And look at the verse, if you have it in front of you. He's actually saying thanks twice. We thank you, God. We thank you. Bekarov shemecha, and your name was near. Siperu nifleotecha, and your name was near to us, and we told your wonders. So what is he talking about thanking here? Well, first of all, he says we thanked you in the past for the miracles that we are aware that already happened in the past, and we want to thank you again. So repeat the miracles that you've performed in the past, make it happen now again, so that we shall thank you again. However, he says, Bekarov shemecha over here, your name is near to us, meaning that even though what we've experienced was a makkah, or tribulations, or difficult moments, where we were oppressed and persecuted, we thank you for that too. Karov shemecha means your name was always close to us, because we always realized that it was coming from you. It wasn't that just somebody decided to persecute us, to go after us. In the end, we realized that it all came from you. So we want to tell our children and future generations about the miracles that we experienced. So make those miracles happen again, so that we can thank you once again. So thanking Hashem twice, meaning thanking you for the past, thanking you in the future, as well as the other meaning behind thanking, which is, even though we may see it as a difficult time, even though we're being hit over our head, why would somebody thank anybody for that? We thank you for that too. We thank you for the pain as well, because we realize who it is coming from. It is coming from our Father. Father loves his child. He means his well-being. So we will always thank you, as in the past your name was always close to us, meaning we always realized it was from you. Ki ekach moed ani mesharim eshpot. Very interesting way of saying these words. Ekach means to take, but he's talking about a moed, a designated time that only he knows, when Mashiach will come, when the redemption will take place. But he says when that will happen, ani mesharim eshpot. When I choose that appointed or that designated time, I will judge with fairness. In other words, today it's not fair. Only then will it be fair. Only then will we see, will we take note that it's been fair. But that will happen, because in the end there is a day of judgment, a day of reckoning. Judgment does not happen now at all the times, so we don't see it immediately. Why are the wicked prospering? Momentarily at least. So we don't see the fairness now, but we will see the fairness later. We will see that there's a reason for it. So when that will come, when the time comes, and I decide, because only Hashem knows when it will be, there's no set date. So it's when He decides, when the appointed time will arrive, you will see judgment. So one of the things to look forward to, one of the things that will happen very soon when Mashiach comes, is judgment. That's part of our tradition. It's very clear in many prophecies that there is a day of judgment. And judgment means when things are straightened out, when things are evened out. Because after all, Hashem's midah is tzedek, His righteousness, He's just, He's fair. We want to see that. We're looking forward to that time. So he says part of that process of the Messianic era will involve ishpot, and it will be with misharim. You will see how it will be done with fairness. Everything will be accounted for. How could everything be accounted for? Because Hashem doesn't forget. Everything is remembered. Everything is taken into account. But why does it say ekach moed? So this is, by the way, Ruach HaKodesh is answering. The Navi is not saying the words on his own. Ki ekach means I will take. Who's saying I will take? Hashem. The Ruach HaKodesh is answering to the question before, when will this take place? When Hashem decides, that's when it will take place. Ki ekach moed really means also when I will make it happen. When I will carry out what I plan to do. So that is why he's using the word ekach. Ekach means to take action, perhaps. It's usually not a word that is employed in describing a time when certain things will happen. When I take my time, even though Hashem has been taking His time, I don't mean it in that sense. There's a reason why it's been taking so long. But when the time finally arrives, Hashem will take action. Hashem will take action at the time that only He knows. As the rabbis tell us, that time He has not revealed to anyone. Not even the prophets know this time. Even though there's a final date, there's also a date called Ahishena, that Hashem can accelerate the coming of the Mashiach sooner than that final date. And we're hoping that it should come sooner than later. Either way, we're at the very, very end of the end of days already. Right? Now it's 5779. Right? So how many years do we have left to the year 6000? We know that this world will last 6,000. Last meaning the way we know it. There will always be a world of sorts, but the world as we know it, the physical world as we know it, will only be until the year 6,000 according to our tradition. So there's not that much time left for the last prophecies to fulfill themselves, which means that all the tribes have to come back, which we will talk about soon. The Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt. There will be Techiyat HaMetim, the dead will rise. At least for a number of years, they will be around in their physical bodies. Because the soul will always exist, even after this year 6,000. So when is that moed? When is that time frame? Only Hashem knows. But it's going to happen. So He's reassuring us, there will be a time you will see fairness, you will see judgment. What will happen then? He continues on to say, Nemogim eretz v'chol yoshveha, anochi tikanti amodei hasela. What will happen at that time will be things that you've never heard of before, in a sense. No one will be able to attribute it to an act of nature. He says, when the earth and all its inhabitants begin to melt, that's a literal translation, Nemogim eretz v'chol yoshveha, the land begins to melt, the inhabitants, the people begin to melt. These are scary times, and if you want a more elaborate description, Zechariah in chapter Yudalet 14 describes what will happen, especially in the war of Gog and Magog. In the end, it has to be communicated to man. It has to be made clear that this is not a freak act of nature. This is the hand of Hashem. The hand of Hashem will be revealed. There are always miracles, but an open miracle that is clearly visible and revealed to all will happen only then. Even though when we left Egypt there were also very clear miracles, these miracles will be even greater than the miracles of Egypt. Then the whole world will see it and experience it. So it will be very, very powerful. So he describes part of the process involving something happening to the earth, something happening to a large amount of people who will be living at the time, and some of it is not too good, meaning that it will be very painful. They will melt. Melt is, even though it doesn't literally mean melt like metal melts or like a candle melts, it also means out of fear, frightened, anxious, hiding. It can mean all of that too. But it's a powerful word because it's also being associated with the land and with the people. So something will happen that will shatter people's confidence or people's old beliefs in what they thought. All of a sudden, nimogu, they will be in fear. They will realize the truth. So they will go through something that will be clear to them that this is Mishamayim, and that is what will shake them up. Today, people are not shaken enough by an earthquake. They say, oh, the geologists say that we're living in a fault. San Andreas fault is not so far from here. Or if you live in certain countries like in Mexico or in Chile, oh, it happens all the time. Or in Turkey, certain parts of Iran, or in the Ring of Fire, Japan, and so forth. So people easily attribute it to some geological fault. Yeah, but who put the fault to begin with? Who triggers it? Some people actually think that we take out oil from the ground and that causes the earth to shake. Even though there is a physical explanation for what it means when plates, tectonic plates, move. Yeah, but who's making them move? It's not because they're imperfect, even though we know that they're not perfect. But who made them imperfect? So there's always a real cause behind all of this. As the verse says, "Amabit la'aretz v'tir'ad," it's Hashem who looks down at the earth and makes it shake. Same thing with volcanoes. So in this verse, Dalet, verse number 4, we're talking about a major event or events that will occur at the end of times that will melt the earth, melt the people. It will come very, very much to their attention that there's a ruler. And what will happen then? The end of the pasuk says, Anochi tikanti amudei hasela. I established its pillars, Selah, forever. All along, from the very beginning, it was me who established the earth, created the earth. Amudei, its pillars, its foundations. From the very beginning, it was I who managed everything. So this is something that people will finally realize and understand. When Nemogim, Eretz V'chol Yisrael, when it happens to them, that they are completely shaken, they will realize that Anochi, Hashem, Tikanti Amudei Hasela, I'm the one that established everything. I'm the one that's behind everything. And this is an important point. When he says behind everything, it's not only the creation of the world, it's not only the creation of human beings and animal species. I'm behind the successes and failures of nations. Even though failures is usually man-made, people make mistakes, but Hashem is the one that chooses who will be king, who will be president, who will be prime minister, and who will not. So major events in the world, Hashem is behind them. So Anochi tikanti amudei hasela, the very establishment of earth and the way it is managed and functions all along, for the most part, besides free will in certain areas, everything is from Shamayim. And that's something that people don't realize. That so much is in the hand of Hashem. I mean, everything is in the hand of Hashem, but so much is already decided from before. So much is predestined, predetermined, except for those few areas that we have free will. Man has free will whether he will be a righteous individual or a wicked individual. But otherwise, major world events, it's all established from before. It's all established by Hashem. Amarti laholelim al taholu, v'laresha'im al tarimu keren. Such beautiful words. If we take the time to analyze what he's saying, it helps to know a little bit Hebrew, of course. But even if you know Hebrew perfectly, some of these words are difficult. It's more biblical Hebrew, and it's not used so much in modern day Hebrew. So it's important to learn it with commentaries. Otherwise, there's some very, very difficult verses, as you will see. Here, this verse, Amarti laholelim, holelut is a word that is recognized by most Hebrew speakers. And that has to do with people who are looking to have fun. That's the way I interpret it. Holelut, having a good time, But it's not only having a good time, it's having a good time doing the wrong things. Like getting drunk. That's holelut. It's a type of fun where people do not take responsibility. I think there's another word for English, but I don't remember it right now. And it is a type of lifestyle where people think, akol hefker. In other words, there's no accountability. You can do anything you want. Very, very liberal type of lifestyle. So I said to the Holelim, to those who are seeking to have fun, even though some want to translate this as those who are perverse. But perverse, I think, is a different type of idea. But perhaps it's related to it, perversion. I tell them don't be perverted, or don't seek to just have fun, and don't try to get yourself into trouble, because you're going to pay for it. In the end, you pay for it. And I turn my words to the wicked, he says, to those who are wicked, and I tell them, don't raise your keren. Your keren means your horn. But what does it mean to raise your horn? Don't be so proud of yourself. Don't be overconfident. Don't think just because you're on top of the world now, that you are the one who is the leader, that you will always be that way. You can easily come down. So he says, all of this holelut and all of this arrogance, all of this type of activity that you see around the world today, where people are not responsible and think that they're never going to be held accountable for what they do, that's going to come to an end. Don't think that this will last forever. Don't continue this way, because eventually you're going to pay for it. You're going to be held accountable. You will see. Now, what do you mean you will see? A lot of people who were like that, they died. Yeah, but they come back in their reincarnation. People don't understand what reincarnation is, so they have a hard time. What about all those wicked people that died in bed? They never were killed. Nothing ever happened to them. So you see how this verse is important. Eventually, Hashem brings them back. They will see for themselves. We may not recognize them, that they were around 200 years ago, but Hashem knows. Eventually, they pay for their crimes. So don't continue in this kind with this kind of an attitude, because it won't last for long. You will see in the end, it will all finish. Al tarimu lamaron karnechem tedabru b'tzavar atak. This is in some ways a continuation of what he's saying, that don't raise your prize heavenward, and don't speak with a tzavar atak, with an arrogant neck. It's just another way of describing people who boast, who are arrogant, who think that they own the world, they have so much money, they're very powerful, they have large armies. Regardless, it all means the same thing. Don't talk as though you're in control, because you're not in control. As he's going to explain in the next pasuk, who is the one that brought you to power to begin with? What about all those that were before you? Remember, there was once an Assyrian empire. Whoever remembers them, there's barely any place that they called Assyria. What about the old Greek Empire, the old Persian Empire? What about Spain and Portugal? Not too long ago, they were large empires. They controlled a lot of what Africa is. Today, you don't see Spain and Portugal in Africa really, even though Spanish and Portuguese are still spoken in certain countries, because they were colonies. But you don't see the original empires there. England even doesn't have so much of a presence in Africa. So these were empires, very, very powerful empires in the past, and today they're not so. So he's telling these empires, you think that you get credit for being who you are, for being as powerful as you are? No, no. So when he uses the words, don't raise your pride heavenward, he's saying don't take the credit for yourself, as though you're the one that made this happen. No, be careful. Be careful with this. You don't understand, you don't realize that it's not from the east or the west, and not from the desert that greatness, Harim over here, even though Harim is usually mountains, but it's another way of saying greatness. It's not from the east, from the west, from the north, from the south. Greatness is not man-made. It's not because you went to college and you got a PhD that you're making so much money. It's not because of your efforts necessarily that got you to where you got. Even though we need to make an effort, even though we need to study, we obviously need to do something. Things don't just happen by themselves. But whether we succeed or not in our endeavor, that's all from Shamayim. That's all from heaven. You have a lot of people who studied a lot but never made it in life. I'm talking about financially. You have a lot of people that barely did anything. They don't know how to write a word of English. And they're very, very wealthy. How come? How does this happen? It's called mazal. Mazal, I prefer to use the word destiny and fate, not luck. Because luck sometimes gives the idea that it's by chance. It's luck. It's lucky. No, but there is a mazal. Everybody's born under a certain mazal, and that is preordained, and there's a reason for that, why this individual will have such and such a mission, and he's given the tools to accomplish the mission, and the tools may be wealth or poverty, or something in the middle. So the means to accomplish one's mission, of course, involves partially who he marries, his finances, the job, and the location of where he will live, where he will end up in the world. So here comes this individual who says, okay, I'm moving. I'm moving to Hong Kong. You think you're making that decision is being made above. For the most part, usually. There are times that people have certain leeway, certain amount of free will, in certain areas only, but it's very limited. The main area of free will, again, is only whether one performs well or not in the area of deeds. Is he going to be a good individual, a good husband, a good father, a good friend, a good neighbor, an honest businessman? A righteous individual, will he do the right thing, or will he do the wrong thing? Will he cheat people? Will he lie? How will he behave? Will he hit, abuse anyone, look down at people, make fun of them? That's all free will, 100% free will. But everything else, as far as man's fate, his goral in life, his destiny, that's up to Shamayim, up to his package deal. And that's something that's very, very poorly understood by many, many people. They really think that they make the decisions entirely by themselves. And they feel very, very bad or disappointed when things don't go the way they wanted. Because it was not meant to be, perhaps, the way you wanted. As there's a saying in Yiddish, a man thinks, but God laughs. It doesn't mean you can't think. You're allowed to think and plan. But if things don't work out the way you wanted to, just remember it's from Shamayim. It's from heaven. So here he's talking about empires. He's talking about war. He's talking about major ups and downs on a global scale. Just don't think that your empire, that your presidency, that your leadership will last for long, or even your economy. Because it's not made by you. Even though it appears that you're doing certain things, you're providing employment to people, obviously, but who gives you the ideas? Who implants those ideas in the mind of the treasurer, right? Or of this minister or that minister? It's all from Shamayim. People don't understand. What do you mean? It is implanted in them? Yes, it's implanted in them from above. Everything is from above when it comes to the fate, the destiny of a nation, especially a nation. So even though the president may have a lot of power, in the end, the verse in Mishlei, Solomon tells us that Lev Melachim B'Sarim B'Yad Hashem, the hearts of kings is in the hand of Hashem. He manipulates them according to his wishes, even though they have free will to an extent. Of course, they're human beings. But because they control so many people, an entire nation, an entire country is in their hands, Hashem is not going to let him do whatever he wants that will affect the destiny and fate of many, many people. One man, it's in the hand of Hashem. So if he's a very, very bad person, he won't be able to get away with it. He will be assassinated perhaps at one point. You know, or he won't make it, he'll die of an illness if he's really bad and doesn't belong there for too long. Then why did Hashem make him king to begin with? Only Hashem knows. Maybe that's what they deserve. You know. So we don't know the reasons always for why things happen, but we have to remember that major things like that happen from above. So he says, don't be so arrogant. Don't think your power will last forever. Don't make fun of those who are righteous, because these people who are looking to have fun will automatically have a negative attitude towards those people who are trying to do the right thing. Same thing with the wicked people who don't like it. Somehow their conscience bothers them, that there are people who don't think like that, don't believe in what they believe. So leave these righteous people alone. Don't hurt them. Because in the end, who's the one that's in charge? Ki Elohim shofet, ze yashpil veze yarim. In the end, it's all from God. He is the judge. Shofet, he's the judge. And he decides who he will humble and who he will elevate. Pretty much as we said all along. Who will be king, who will lose the presidency, who will not make it, who will not be elected. And the same thing happens with money. There are some people who have a lot of money, and Hashem at some point in their life will take away all that money and give it to someone else. So you have people who are very, very poor, and somehow in midlife, the age of 40, 45, all of a sudden they made it. It could be through a lottery, it could be through a job, it could be through a promotion, in all kinds of ways. There's a lot of ways where people can make it, as they say in English, to advance. And there's the other way around too. People lost all their money. Yeah. And it happened to them the day their insurance canceled. They had insurance, but the day they forgot to renew their policy and it was canceled, that's when the loss occurred. So it's all Shamayim. Why did he forget? He always pays his bills on time. But if it's meant to be, that insurance policy will not be there for you. Why? He decides, he's the judge, who he lowers, who he humbles, and who he elevates. This happens all the time. And Solomon says, "En chadash tachat hashemesh." There's nothing new under the sun. You've seen this before. You can read it in the history books. Rich people who became poor, people who became rich, in all kinds of ways. I mean, this happens actually every day, where people all of a sudden lose their wealth, and some people somehow all of a sudden, out of nothing, they begin to grow. And in a number of years, they own a lot of factories and a lot of buildings and real estate. And they had a very humble beginning in a very small village in Yucatan, if you know where that is. From a small village, he barely had any education. He was illiterate for a while, even though today you don't have too many people illiterate, but yeah, it could happen. How? Ze yashpil veze yarim. It's Kadosh Baruch Hu that makes it happen. And of course, people are wondering, why only him, not me? Why did he? We don't know the answer to that question. We really don't. It doesn't pay to try to figure everything out, because we will never succeed in doing that. All we need to know is that Hashem manages the world and He knows what He's doing. But one day we're going to know when Mashiach comes. But now, in turning to the nations, he says something very interesting. In the end, what will happen is they will drink from a cup, which I think would be a good idea to elaborate just a little bit more on why part of the punishment, of the retribution that will occur in the end of days, is this being described as a cup of wine. They will drink from this cup of wine. Even though it says elsewhere, a kos tar'ela, which is in a sense poison. There was something that will hurt them. It's the same idea. They're still drinking from this cup. So we need to understand this. So the verse says as follows: Kichos biyad Adonai v'yayin hamar male mesech vayager mizeach shemarei yimtzu yishtu kol rishei haaretz. So I would say about 50% of this verse is not easily understood by even someone who's proficient in Hebrew. You may recognize and identify some of the words, but what is he trying to say here? So the translation is as follows: Kikos biyad Hashem, there's a cup. What kind of a cup? A cup of punishment. That's what he's talking about. In the hand of Hashem. In other words, this punishment that will come in the end of days will be directly from Shamayim, and people will realize that it's from Shamayim. Alright? And what's in this cup? Yain Hamar. Yain Hamar is a very strong wine. That's according to one interpretation what Yain Hamar means. Male, Mesech, it is quite full. it is overflowing. That's perhaps one way of interpreting this pasuk, these words, that this cup is overflowing with wine. It's very, very strong wine. Vayager mizeh, and Hashem will pour from this very, very strong wine. And who will drink from it? Ach shemarei yimtzu yishtu kol rishei aretz. All the wicked of the land will drink from it. But not only will they drink this wine, Ach shemarei, what's interesting is he adds the words, Ach shemarei yimtzu yishtu. They will even drink the leftover dregs. You know, the sediment that's left at the very, very bottom. As we say in English, every little drop of wine, they will drink. Nothing will be wasted. Wow. Powerful words. But at least we understand that who's going to get it? The Rish'ei Aretz, the wicked people. Okay, so in the end, the wicked people are going to pay. We've seen this message many, many times. What's so different about this? That here he describes that, first of all, this will happen in the future. We're talking about a future event that has not happened, but even though it has happened in World War I and World War II, where the evil sides, the evil people, the evil nations did lose, Baruch Hashem, thank God. You know, there's an axis of evil all the time. There are certain people, certain nations, certain empires that represent evil more than others. Evil is everywhere. There are evil people in every nation. Unfortunately, every religion, every people has good and bad human beings who have succumbed to their evil inclination. But then you have a concentration. You have more evil here and less evil there. So obviously, you know, when you see it, you know it, because they act in a very, very evil way, in a very selfish way, in a destructive way. You can see it. So in the end, they will pay for their crimes. Which crimes? The entire history that Hashem has recorded, documented, what they have done. They're going to pay for it. How? With a kos, with a cup of wine, a very powerful wine. So what does all this mean? Why are we describing what they will suffer as a cup of wine, a cup of strong wine? Well, the simple explanation here, we're talking about strong wine. In other words, it will be a very, very strong punishment. That they will drink even to the last drop means that nothing will be forgotten. That they will get exactly what is coming to them, even for the smallest thing that they may have done in the past that people totally have forgotten, not aware of. No, even the shemarim, even the residue, the dregs, the sediment, everything will be drunk. So they will suffer in the end for everything that they have done. Nothing will be forgotten. Powerful wine. But why wine? So I was thinking about it. I haven't really seen anybody explain it. I think there are some commentators elsewhere perhaps who talk more about it. But it's very interesting how this week we're going to read about Noach. Does wine bring to memory anything? Noach, right after the Mabul, he planted a vine. And he made wine, and he got drunk. And what did he do when he got drunk? He undressed. And basically he made a fool of himself. And then the story goes on with his youngest son, basically, who was very, very not respectful of his father. Let's just say it that way. And as a result, that was cursed as well. What does Noah have to make wine now? Plant a vine? Why not an apple tree? Cherries. Why not? We know wine, of course, is important to celebrate, and of course, wine is a special drink. But why get drunk then? Why overdo it? Perhaps one idea is that the Torah does not just describing an event that happened. The Torah is a small, abridged book. It does not contain all the details of the history of mankind. There's more details in the Midrash. So if the Torah wrote this and described what happened right after the Mabul to Noah, who was a Ish Tzaddik, he was a righteous individual, the Torah said so, it must be telling us something that is of importance. Noach has something in common with Adam Arishon, the Torah is telling us. What happened with Adam Arishon, first man? Adam and Chava, their first sin was what? That they ate from the forbidden fruit. Why is that so important? It's not just that they went against the will of Hashem. They committed a sin. The Torah is revealing to us that man's downfall, for the most part in life, will usually be attributed to ta'avot, desires. Look at Adam and Chava. How did they fall for it? Through a ta'ava, through a desire that they had. They desired something. Now, some people desire money, some people desire food. People desire different things, but that desire kills them. The downfall of people throughout history has been because of ta'avot. For the most part, ta'avot, forbidden ta'avot, desires. Look what happened to Adam and Chava. They desired something. So it is with Noach. Wine. Wine is symbolic of ta'ava, of a desire. But this desire is a very dangerous desire because it can make you drunk. So wine is dangerous. Noach is making the mistake because vayachel, it says. Even though the word vayachel means he began to plant a vine, it also means lashon chulin, unholy. Something which is not sacred is called chulin. He dedicated himself, devoted himself, immersed himself in ha'adama, in planting. Now, nothing wrong with that. I mean, we want to cultivate the land. But don't forget, Hashem just saved your life. Hashem is building up the world from your family. And Noach, of course, is thankful for that and brings a sacrifice. But don't forget where the main focus needs to be, not in the Adamah, but in the service of Hashem. Because if you immerse yourself too much in chulin, in that which is unholy, and you drink that wine, too much of it, it will make you drunk. And when people are drunk, they're distracted, they do terrible things, they do wrong things. So it's a very powerful lesson, I think. Wine makes people drunk and forgetful. And the reason why it's being used here with the nations of the world as a punishment is because here they're being reminded, look, it is because of your ta'ava, because of your desires, that you were led astray, that you thought so much of yourself, of your strength and of your might, because you had so much money. Your life was all about desire. Food and drink and have a good time. You only live once, they would claim. And that wine has made you drunk and forgetful, and has distracted you from the main focus of Hashem. So here the kos, a yain that they're drinking from, is you're drinking from that wine that has made you drunk. You are paying for your crimes as a result of your silly actions that stem from tava, from desire, from food and drink, or in being merry, as they say in English. That's all you thought about. The average non-Jew, that's what he thinks about, is having a good time. They say the American dream is a house and a dog. Is that all? Is that all you think about? That's what will make you happy? So obviously, we don't think that way. We're not supposed to think that way. That's not what life is all about. But people get drunk as a result of coveting all these silly things, wine. So they will get a taste of this very, very strong wine. But why is it so strong? Because it's been sitting around for a long time. Wine, the longer it sits, as long as it sits in barrels and not exposed to sunlight and so forth, it becomes stronger. And there is therefore a wine that is reserved for the tzaddikim too, a strong wine, that lavo in the future, that is symbolic of their reward, a very strong, fine, mellow, good wine that they will realize only later on that it paid for them to work so hard to get to where they got to. So that is a different kind of wine. But here we're talking about the punishment, and the punishment will be to the last drop. And who will get it? Bish'ei aretz, the wicked of the land. I was also thinking that perhaps yain, the numerical value of yain of wine is 70. Perhaps it's relating to the 70 nations. That they will be the ones, they will experience this wrath, this punishment from Shamayim. The last two pasukim of this chapter ואני אגיד לעולם הזמרה לאלוהי יעקב, but for me, I will tell it forever. Azamera, I will sing to God, to the God of Yaakov. Who is he talking about? He's talking about the Jewish people. I will see it. Hopefully I will live through it, so I will be able to sing and to give thanks and praise to Hashem, to the God of Yaakov. Now here, Yaakov is being specified because the Jewish people, as we know them today, really come from Yaakov. Abraham and Yitzchak, who are our forefathers, the patriarchs, had children who are today other religions, other faiths. The Muslims come from Abraham. You have many Europeans that come from Esav. So the emphasis here is on Yaakov, that he will stand out when Mashiach comes. בכל קרני רשעים אגדיה תרוממנה קרנות צדיק. At that point, all the glory, I guess we can translate, the glory of the wicked, Hashem will cut off. Teromamna karnot tzaddik, and the righteous will be raised and uplifted. So this is a time that we're all looking forward to, when finally, in the end, we will all see that that which belongs to Resha, the Tzira Resha as it's called in Hebrew, the axis of evil will be completely cut off, will be humbled, will come crashing down forever. Today there are ups and downs all over the place, but this will be permanent. At that point, agadea. When you see the word agadea, it means from the root. It means completely chopped off. Like sometimes trees come down, but they can still sprout back. They can still come back to life. Depends how much has come down. Agadea means to completely chop off. There's no chance of coming back. So at that point, when Mashiach comes, the evil will cease to exist, it will be completely eliminated, and the righteous will be the ones to survive, the ones to remain. Chapter Ayin Vav, Lamnatzer bin Ginot Mizmor le'asaf shir. So this one is also with music, it's a song. Bin Ginot is with an instrument, and also being said by Asaf. Nodab Yehuda Elohim b'Yisrael Gadol Shemo. So the commentaries tell us that some of the words that Asaf is saying here, perhaps the entire chapter, relates to an event that had already occurred in the past, Sancheriv, when the Syrian king attempted to overtake Jerusalem, and he failed miserably. King back then was Chizkiyahu, who was a righteous king, even though in the end, unfortunately, Nebuchadnezzar did succeed of the Babylonian Empire to destroy whatever was left of Yehuda. Sancheriv at first, or actually the Syrian Empire, did remove from Israel the 10 tribes, who are still removed from Israel until Mashiach comes. They will come back. So here he's talking about the downfall of Sancheriv, which was also a very miraculous event in how it happened. Even though hundreds of thousands of soldiers came together to attack, all of a sudden at night an angel came and killed them. In the morning, no one woke up except for the king, except for the general. And of course there was nothing for them left to do. It was an open miracle. Chizkiyahu was a righteous king, and the time had not come yet to invade that part of Israel yet. Bet HaMikdash was only destroyed later on. But it was a warning sign. Here, the enemy could easily come back. This time you had a miracle. You have a righteous king. So take note. Look what Hashem has done for you. Do teshuvah and repent. Unfortunately, that repentance didn't really last too long, even though they, of course, were very thankful for being saved, being protected. But the next kings were not really that good. And the Jewish nation, whatever remained of them in that area, were exiled to Bavel, to Babylonia. So part of this chapter, or the entire chapter, can be relating, as you will see, some of it fits the miracles that happened with Sancheriv and Chizkiyahu, but a lot of it could also easily relate, as a continuation from last chapter, to the end of days, to Mashiach's time. Nodab Yehuda, God will be known in Yehuda. Nodab Yehuda Elohim, B'Yisrael Gadol Shemo, and in Israel his name is great. So this in itself is very interesting. Why does he distinguish between Yehuda and Israel? Well, the simple idea here is perhaps he's talking about the 10 lost tribes. Yehuda will first come back from exile. Today the majority of Jewish people are from Yehuda, except for the Kohanim and Leviim. Some are from Binyamin and others, but mostly we are known as Yehudim, Jews from Yehuda. We're the ones that were exiled last, in the end, scattered all over Europe, and eventually to other countries too, North and South America, Australia. So Nodab Yehuda, it will be known to Yehuda. At first, Yehuda will be the one that's coming back, the one to see the reestablishment of the land of Israel with its children. B'Yisrael Gadol Shemo, but in Israel as well, they will be known. In other words, amongst Israel, Hashem will also be known, meaning that the 10 tribes will come back, they will join us, they will be coming at the very, very end. And according to others, it could also mean that the 10 tribes were upset initially when they said, how come only we are exiled and not them? They're not necessarily better than us. So when they see that Yehuda suffered a similar experience that they did, they were exiled as well, now they realize that there is a God in the world who's fair. You know, he didn't show any favoritism and kept them in Israel. Unfortunately, almost everybody was exiled from Israel. But that will come to an end, and Baruch Hashem, we're living in that era, that we're seeing that ingathering happening. So when will all this be? Look at the next verse. Vayhi b'shalem sukkot me'unato b'tzion. This will happen when his tabernacle will be in Shalem, or his dwelling place in Zion. Sukkot, the Sukkah, is referring to the Beit HaMikdash. As it says, Arachamanu yakim lanu et Sukkat David hanofelet, that we say in the holiday Sukkot. Hashem hopefully will raise back that tabernacle, that Beit HaMikdash, very, very soon. But where will it be? In Shalem, in Zion, in Yerushalayim. So here the focus is on Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim will be a very important focal point. Whether it is the war of Gog and Magog, whether it is the event of Sancheriv. That was the capital always. So when are we talking about that there will be a great revelation that Hashem will be revealed in Yehuda and Israel? When it will be B'Shalem Sukkot, when his dwelling place will be restored in Zion. Shama Shibar Ishpei Kashet Magen V'Cherev U'Milchama Sela. There he broke the flying arrows of the bow and the Magen, the shield, and the Charev, and the swords, U'Milchama Sela, in battles forever. He broke them forever. Very interesting word here, Rishpei Kashet. You'll be surprised. Kashet, we understand, the bows and arrows that are always being used, in the past at least, to conduct warfare. Today, we don't use them. But the question is, what's Rishpei? Rishpei usually means something that is burning. Since when do arrows burn? To me, it's very clear. He's talking about missiles. Flying arrows that are burning? I haven't seen anybody say it, but I think it's obvious. And he will break them. Break them doesn't necessarily mean to break. It means they will no longer be used. At that time, all of this weaponry will be gone, will be broken. The shields of war, the swords of war, the war itself battles itself, Selah forever. So at that point, when Hashem is revealed, when Hashem's dwelling place is restored, Shama Shibar, that will be a permanent cessation of war, where all the missiles and weaponry will no longer be of any use. Na'or ata adir meharerei taref. And at that point, the world will see the light that's coming from Zion. You are the illumination. And you are adir, you are mightier, more revered than Hareret Taref, than all the mountains of prey. Now that's a very funny word, Hareret Taref, the mountains of prey. What prey are we talking about? It's really a description of all the mighty countries that have built up their cities of might, of wealth. And he says, of course, Taref, because they are of prey. They've been going after us. They've been oppressing others. So you are mightier than them. They will see that they're nothing compared to you. You will be the illumination towards which they will want to come and be a part of. You are mightier than all of these powerful places. השתוללו אבירי לב נמו שנתם ולא מצאו כל אנשיך על ידיהם. Abirei lev are the strong people, the ones who are courageous. The ishtolelu, they will lose their mind. That's, I think, a good way of saying it. They will lose their mind. Namu shenotam, they will go to sleep. In other words, they will have no sense. They will not understand what's going on. Velo matzu kol anshe chayim, because they won't figure out how come they can't wage war anymore. How come they're unsuccessful? How come their missiles didn't work? In other words, it will be a time when ishtolelu. They will lose their sense. They will not understand. They will not be able to figure out why things are not anymore the way they used to be. Even though we're talking about abirei lev, those who are very, very strong in their heart, those who are courageous. Namu shenotam, it's like they would be asleep. In other words, inactive. They will not be able to do anything. Migaratcha Elohei Yaakov nirdam varechev asus. From your rebuke, from your shout, the God of Yaakov, nirdam varechev asus, the chariot and the horse fell asleep or were stunned in shock. So this could be with Sancheriv too, when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they became helpless. Or it could be talking about the end of days, or Gog and Magog will see that they're helpless. There's nothing they can do. And that will convince them that this is from Shamayim. In other words, as I've always said, it's going to be clear to all that this is not an act of nature, that this is... It didn't work this time. The missile needs to be improved. No, it has nothing to do with your missiles and your radar and your tanks. It will be clear that Migaratcha Elohei, it's from the rebuke of Hashem. The reason he uses the word gara, which means to shout, to make it sound loud, is that it will be clear. It will be aloud. It will be very, very loud. It will be clear to everyone that this is Elokei Yaakov who's causing this, that everybody is falling asleep, that the rechev and the sus, which really could mean any weaponry. Today we don't use the horses so much. The tanks, as though they will fall asleep. Ata nora ata umi yamod lefanecha me'az apecha. You are great, and who can stand before you? Me'az apecha, once you are enraged. So we see from this pasuk that it's apecha, the rage of Hashem, the anger of Hashem, the retribution that will bring this about. In other words, in the end of days, Hashem will judge the world. So there will be af, there will be anger at everything that they've done. And even though we may not have seen that up until now, at that point we will see. At that point, therefore, atanora, you will be the one that will be feared. You will be considered great. Everybody will know it. So when that comes, when the judgment comes in the world, who can stand before it? Who can do it? Who can resist it? No one will be able to resist. So that's why he's using the word apecha, your anger, because he's referring to that anger that will come as a result of the judgment of the world. Mishamayim mishmat adin eretz yare'a v'shakata. From heaven, you've announced the din, the verdict, the judgment. And when you did that, when you will do that, eretz yare'a v'shakata, then the earth will fear, it will become still. I'm saying it in the future tense, even though it says yare'a v'shakata, it feared and it became still, because it could be referring to Sancheriv as well. But it's just another way of saying, when all of this takes place, there will be quiet. There will be no more war. There will be no more battles between those who are righteous and those who are evil. Everybody will pretty much think the same. And slowly but surely this will be a process where the evil inclination will be removed, the Yetzer Hara. There will be no envy. There will be no coveting. It will be a time where people will have so much clarity about what is the right thing that everybody will just want to do that. And what I mean by that, I mean spirituality. And there will not be that attraction or addiction to materialism, which is what led people away from Hashem. So at that point, when you let know and announce the din, Eretz Yareah v'Shakata, there will be that silence, there will be that calmness that will come down into the world. And of course, it's Mishamayim, Ishmat Din. It will be from Shamayim. People will realize that this is from heaven. This is not... The United Nations decided we're going to all live in peace and harmony. Never has this happened and never will. It's Mishamayim. People will realize this is all coming from heaven. Bekum la mishpat Elohim leoshia kol anvei eretz Selah. So this will happen, he continues on towards the end of the chapter. This will come when God will rise to pass judgment, leoshia, to save kol anvei eretz Selah, all the humble people of the earth forever. In other words, there will be a time when Hashem will judge the world, and this will not just be punishment. Punishment is something that is not really understood. Hashem does not punish just for the sake of punishment. You were bad, you deserve a punishment. It's to even things out. There has to be din, there has to be judgment. Things have to be fair, and to account for things that happened in the past. So when judgment comes, people will realize that this is judgment. And this judgment, even though it's din, leoshia, this will also be merciful. It will help. It will help all those who are righteous, all those who are humble. It will be on the one hand to punish, to get back at those who were evil. On the other hand, it will be to reward those who suffered, those who were humble. To them it will be a Yeshua, to them it will be a salvation. This will be Selah, it will be for eternity. This is a very interesting pasuk, also a little bit difficult to understand. For the anger of man will cause us to thank you. I'm translating it literally. The anger of man will cause you to thank you. But she'erit chemot tachgor. But you will restrain the she'erit, the residue, the leftover, from chemot, from wrath. Very, very perplexing. But what it means, according to some of the commentary, is that man will realize that hamat, the anger, the difficulties that he may have had as a human being, todeka, he will thank you for them because he will realize that all of that was an atonement. And because of what he went through in this world, she'erit chemot tachgor, the leftover that is still coming to him in the sense that he perhaps still deserves, tachgor, Hashem will restrain himself. In the world to come, he will not pay us. In other words, in the world to come, we will not continue to suffer as a result. We will not be punished anymore. So the leftover, that will may still be coming to us. Tachgor, Hashem will restrain himself. So we will realize that there is reason to thank you for all the anger that has been expressed, unfortunately, from above towards man down here. We will realize that that which we suffered in this world is an atonement for our benefit. It will therefore restrain any additional or leftover anger that may still be there from Olam Haba, from the world to come. And this is a very, very important idea, because when there is judgment, usually good people get hurt too. I always tell us that a lot of people get hurt at the time of judgment. The Malach HaMashchit, the destructive angel, does not distinguish. Sometimes people are caught. Innocent people are caught. But the fact is, what other prophets say, we've suffered so much that in the end, Baruch Hashem, we will see that the worst is behind us. And if there's anything that was left over that maybe perhaps we didn't pay for, it will be restrained because of our merits perhaps, and because of the fact that we suffered already more than enough. The last two pesukim, Nidru v'shalemu l'Adonai Elohim kol sevivav yovilu shai lamora. Even though it's not always a good idea to make a vow, to make a promise because you don't want to forget and not fulfill it. That's a very, very severe, serious sin. But he says, make vows to Hashem, to God, and fulfill them. Because all those who surround him will bring a tribute, will bring a gift, shai, lamora, to those who is to be feared, to he who is to be feared. In other words, to Hashem. When Mashiach comes, the Midrash says, nations will bring him a gift. The Hamikdash will be rebuilt. The nations will want to bring sacrifices. Everyone will want to bring a shai lamora, a tribute to Hashem. So do it now. What does it mean now? Make a promise, make a vow, and pay it. I think it's also referring to the tzedakah. You want to be spared from the tribulations of the war of Gog and Magog. This is the time to give tzedakah, to pay your vows. Don't wait till then. At that time, everyone will bring. Now, there's reason for you to be thankful. Do it now, and it will be as a protection for you as well. Even though we don't usually make vows, but if you are at Etzara, be'etzara mutar, it's a good thing to make a vow if you're in Etzara, because that may save you that vow, to commit yourself to do a good thing. So this is the time to pay your vows. This will perhaps protect you from the tribulations of Gog and Magog, because at that time, the last pasuk says, "Yiftzor ruach negidim nora lemalchei aretz." Hashem will cut down the spirit of those who are noble, and his fear, nora, his fear will be, or will abound even amongst malchei aretz, even amongst the kings of the earth. In other words, everyone will fear him. And we say that in the last prayer, Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz. Right? He will be a king over the entire earth. But at that time, yiftzor. Yiftzor is a very interesting verb, to cut down. Yiftzor is when you harvest. You harvest the grapes. Again, we're talking about grapes, but we're talking about yiftzor, the harvest. The harvest is talking about the end. We've planted, we worked hard, we invested, we built up this world. There will come a time, the last scene, the finale, when Hashem is botzer. He basically brings the curtains down, or brings the curtains up, however you want to look at it, and he finishes the movie. He's botzer, he cuts down, in a positive sense too. He harvests everything that he has planted. And we'll see, B'ezrat Hashem, the fruits of our labor. So this is a time to do it, because at that time, he will cut down the spirit of the nobles, which means those who were arrogant, those who thought that they were so great. They're not so great at all. Nora lemalchei, even those who are kings will realize that and will have fear from Hashem. So hopefully we're very close to that time, because that time means basically that there will be no more war in this world. Everybody will come to that realization that Hashem is one.